I think CoverGirl likes me. And I think you're deeply deluded, man. Hey everybody, Max here, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the newly released G.I. Joe Classified series, Footloose, and his pet lizard, Fancy Free. No, just kidding. This is a stole this from Usagi Yojimbo, but Christopher McLeod over on the Full Force podcast said it would be cool if Footloose came with a pet named Fancy Free, and this is the only little animal that I have floating around. So, and I think it fits. I can see Footloose having either a real or imaginary lizard as a pet named Fancy Free. So, before we dive into the figure and all the accessories and all that stuff, let's look at the package and standard stuff with the carbon fiber front and pretty cool artwork on the side, throwing up the peace side because Footloose is a bit of a hippie. And then we have this really cool diorama that is a reference to a very classic G.I. Joe, a Real American Hero cartoon episode, and is what I was quoting at the beginning of this video. So Footloose and his buddy Dusty are out there with the Mauler and having to rescue a scientist from Cobra in the middle of the desert. So yeah, that's really cool, and I like, yeah, I do like these most of the dioramas that they do and the throwbacks and the references. So that's the package. The figure comes with a helmet that he is not displayed with because it is such a pain to get out once you get it in. So I will show you what he looks like at the end of the video because it's just kind of tough to get the head out. So really cool design. The original O-ring figure had kind of a, the mesh with the foliage interwoven into it, and they did a really good job recreating this. It's largely all the same green color, so there's not, I mean, there's some subtleties in the green a little bit here and there, but for the most part, it seems very uniformly green. It has these binoculars or maybe night vision goggles attached. They're permanently attached, so they don't detach and they don't fold down, which is a little disappointing because I was hoping that eventually we would see the wolf spider helmet, or at least these particular night vision goggles. This would have been a perfect, if they were going to go this route, I would have liked to have seen this used, so that would have been cool. But it is what it is. I would like to be able to detach it because I don't know, just kind of, if it's not going to be functional or at least like detach and rotate it around, like kind of like the the G1 Valaverse night vision goggles, you could detach it and rotate it around, show it, line up with the eyes, and then kind of in the up position, take it out, rotate it around. So anyway, it is what it is. But on a whole, it looks really good. Kind of a football helmet chin strap, and it's flexible enough to get the head in there, just kind of push it up through the center, and it's a little bit stretchy. I was afraid I was going to tear it, but you don't distress it too much. But at any rate, it looks cool. Enough about the helmet. He comes with Dusty's backpack. So we've seen this backpack with Tiger Force Dusty and traditional Dusty, and maybe a few others. So, and it fits okay. I think the peg might be a little too long, but you can always just trim that down. So decent detail there, just kind of flat, kind of, kind of just one color, kind of a tannish green color. Comes with another M16 with a little telescope on the side and the drop-down magazine. We've seen this with, I think, Grunt and Scarlet and Mutt and maybe a few others, but it is very loose. It's very warped. It's a little warped because it's very soft, and I hope we're not seeing a return to the softer plastic in the weapons. So, but maybe they do that more for like the pointy weapons, I guess. But anyway, I'm not crazy about that, but it's a cool weapon, and it resembles his OG weapon. He has this new Law Rocket. I don't think we've ever seen this before, but he had a Law Rocket, the OG figure, and it has a rocket that, you know, you can take out, but it does not, there's no retention. So there's that. So there's nothing to keep it in there. There's nothing to store it or attach it to. I guess you could do this. It fits more snugly this way. So you could do that. So that's cool. But doing a little research, the into this thing. This thing's a little bit bigger than a traditional law rocket. So this is actually, I thought this was some kind of like shield or something like that. It's actually the cap. So this end piece telescopes out, and this is the cap that goes on the end when it's telescoped in. So you pop the cap off, telescope it out, use light, pop up the sights, and you're ready to rock and roll. So decent detail. I mean, it's just basically a black tube, just kind of like the real thing. And you know, some detail ridges and here and there. The trigger I think is right here. So I wish it was a little bit smaller, and I wish we got some C cupping hands. I wish we'd finally start getting those in classified, so it would look a little more natural when he holds it, because it's a little tough. It's a little to kind of get it to look natural with these hands and the size of this thing, and it's also warped. Hopefully you can see that. So this guy is destined for the hot tub. I'm going to see if we can straighten this guy out a little bit. And but anyway, it's cool to see some new weapons, and so there is that. You can't store it that way. So okay, and he comes with a knife that we have seen before. I think Grunt and probably a few others, and it goes up right there. And then he has kind of the same kind of 1911 style pistol that we have also seen with Grunt and Mutt and all that. So, and it slides into his holster right there. So we have new vest and new belt, which is nice, and some black paint. And I kid you not, I thought this was an actual working holster for his magazine, and I started pulling on the magazine, and it's nope. I can't believe yeah, it's not stuck in there. It's just painted. So I wish they had just kind of molded an actual pouch and we got another magazine. That'd be cool. But looks like some kind of first aid pouch right there. Not sure what that is, but it looks cool. We've got pouches glued on the side, new pouches here, lots of strapping, painted black. It's probably smoke grenade. Really good paint all around, but you have his red four-leaf clover, which I'm guessing is a unit patch, and then the reverse American flag that has a little scuffing in the paint right there. Nothing to complain about. The glare, sorry for the glare if you can't see it, but I do like the fact that it's the American flag going in reverse, because that's how, like a cavalry charge, I think, that's how the flag would look. So so that's I'm not familiar with the history of this in the armed services, but if you know, let me know. But I mean, I know what that's a reference to, but I'm not sure when they started um, using that. Perhaps it's a always advancing, you know, it's a symbol of we're always moving forward, we're never retreating kind of thing. So let's get into the figure. Now, some people compare the head sculpt to Pedro Pascal, and once I had him in hand, I don't really see it, thankfully, because I'm kind of sick of seeing that guy. And pretty good paint on the hair, and you know, his hair looks kind of flat, like he's been wearing a helmet all day. Really good paint on the mustache, around the eyes. He actually does remind me of the character as he looked in the original artwork on the OG package and in the cartoon and everything. And he's got a dusting of color around his jawline to show he has 5 o'clock shadow, and I think a little bit along the neck too, something along those lines. So I don't know if you're seeing that, but really good. Yeah, I mean, the classified line always has really good face sculpts, and not everybody looks the same, so that's great. So, all right. Anything else I need to point out? Camo paint is great. I really think they did a really good job with the coloring, and he looks like a soldier. You know, he looks like an infantry guy. And the arms are definitely leather necks, without a doubt. I compared it, but the skin tone is different, so that's cool. A little extra attention to detail to kind of differentiate it, but they are the same arms. There's a little bit of a, not, you know, kind of a wobble, you know, some gappage in the, hopefully you can see that, in the elbow joint. It's not, you know, as bad as I've seen, as some others I've seen, but it is something that I'm seeing a little more of. Not just this line, but Valverse and, you know, Operation Monster Force maybe. But yeah, I'm wondering why we're starting to see that in our pinless elbows. But any rate, is what it is. Hopefully that is not a permanent. I don't see it on every figure, thankfully, but Leathernecks definitely didn't do that. So, T-pose, and his arms go all the way around. Now his neck is on a, or his head's on a ball joint, so he only looks up that far. Now his hair kind of gets in the way, and he looks down that far. But you probably need to take out some material out of the top of the neck to give you more range of motion, and pretty good paint on the flesh, the open collar and everything. I think this may be new. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think um, I don't think I've seen this before. I thought initially it might be Shipwreck because he's got a pretty fairly open collar and everything. So, but I don't think so. I could be, but correct me if I'm wrong. I did not check, but I will later. So butterfly joint is decent. He gets pretty good range of motion that way. It's got a good bicep swivel and, double jointed pin in the elbows and all that. And little paint splotchy, there's different color in the elbow from the forearm and everything. Not No paint around the bottom of the shirt cuff where it's rolled up, and that's kind of standard. They don't often do that. So I've sometimes gone behind and tried to color match it and kind of touch it up a little bit. But yeah, and he's got wrist swivels, and there's a vertical hinge on the right and horizontal on the left, so I appreciate that. And then there's a wrist strap or wristband on the right that you can detach, and then a watch on the left that is also detachable, so silver and red. Silver band, red face. And yeah, that's the thing I really like, that is the paint on this guy. He's definitely a solid figure. And these are new legs too, which surprised me because at first blush, I thought they were just reusing Airborne's legs that they used for Leatherneck. So they're reusing Leatherneck's arms. Why not just reuse those legs? But these are new, so I don't know, unless they've been used with a figure that I don't have. Were they used with Crazy Legs, perhaps? Um, for the Dragonfly? Let me know in the comments if you know. And the paint's pretty good. The kind of this darker kind of earth tone. There's the paint's a little chipped here and there, but kind of gives him a lived-in look, I guess. To me, good texture to the legs, like the fabric, I guess, kind of like canvas. And so yeah, I'm fairly pleased, kind of surprised, and I wonder how they're going to be used in the future with other figures. So we've got that. And let's see. So he's got an ab crunch that is pretty stiff, but you can get some forward bend despite the vest, and he goes back that far. And I will say that the waist swivel has gotten a lot better with the newer figures. A lot of the older Joes, it's supposed to turn there, but there's so much tension that I've always been afraid I would rip the peg or break the peg, so I just left it alone. But I can actually get some pretty good back and forth, side to side, and no real, kind of leaning. You can't really do that. But yeah, you can twist him a little bit better. So a lot of the newer figures, I think whatever they did, it's working. And he has the drop down hips, but they're fairly stiff. Kind of have to work them. I'm not a big fan of drop down hips anyway, but with the drop down hips, he kicks a little past 90 degrees, and he has pretty good splits. You can move the belt around, get the holster out of the way, so it doesn't really obstruct. It doesn't come down too low, but he kicks up far to the side, and pretty good thigh swivel. I don't know what it is lately. I've noticed that right legs, the thigh swivel is a little tighter, left leg's a little looser. I don't know if that's because of a different design, perhaps, so they don't confuse the legs. Like maybe if I take them off, there's going to be an R on one and L on the other, something like that. Kicks back that far, so these are pretty good legs. And we have an ankle swivel, which is great, and feet go down that far. And these are, I think, Airborne's feet, but they added a little extra coloring. Maybe the original figure had that coloring right there, these stripes, so kind of this greenish tan striped down both sides. So yeah, this is a good figure. I'm very pleased with it. It wasn't one that I had as a kid, but I was kind of on the fence about getting him. But on a whole, I'm actually kind of glad that I did. He's a solid figure. I most likely am going to swap out his weapons. I've got this Valaverse weapon that I think will fit just fine with him because I don't like these gummy weapons. And probably trim down the peg on the backpack a little bit, but I don't really go for backpacks anyway, so it's probably just going to go in a bin. But you let me know what you're going to do. How do you display your figures? Let me know what you think in the comments section. I'm going to give this guy a warp factor of 8.5 because he's just solid. He's a solid figure. Um, Maybe he deserves a little higher, but I'm going to stick with 8.5. He's just he's just a soldier. He's a good character. He was very unique to the cartoon and good personality, interesting story, and but he just kind of looks like a guy in green fatigues. So, and maybe that's what they're going for. Kind of like Grunt was just kind of an army builder too. Came with the steel core helmets and all that. So yeah, that's Footloose, guys. I'm going to give, like I said, warp factor of 8.5. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And I will talk at you guys next time. Continue to be awesome.